I want to talk to you about activists, because it's something that you brought up earlier, saying that you find them unappealing. Like, I want to know what you think the motivation of a lot of these, like, particularly radical left-wing activists that want to shut down lectures and scream people down in these auditoriums. What do you think the motivation of these people is, and what do you think is the root of it?
Well, I think that it's a quick route to moral virtue. It's actually really hard to put yourself together, and you have to do that in ways that you can't trumpet. Because most of the things that are wrong with you are kind of low, what would you call it, second rate and embarrassing. All your stupid little habits and your proclivity to procrastinate and all the things that you're minorly ashamed of. And then you have to work on those slowly, because the probability that you're going to be able to fix them quickly is low. And you can't really brag about it because it's so embarrassing just to admit that they exist to begin with that you can hardly brag about it. And it's sort of painstaking private work. And you don't get a lot of quick social status for it. It's effortful, embarrassing, humbling, and difficult. And then you can do something like be an activist, and you get all that public acclaim for being on the good side with no effort whatsoever. And so it's a plus.
Do you think that there's any motivation at all to try to make the world a better place?
Yes. I think
you
there's
think
some.
That's part of it.
Sure. Well,
but you think it's flavored by this desire to broadcast your virtue?
Yes, because it's very difficult to make the world a better place. That's the thing young people have a messianic impulse. That's another thing that was documented by Piaget, that there's a stage, in late adolescence where you want to make the world a better place. And I would say that's probably part of the impulse to, establish a permanent relationship and have a family and take care of people, and to take on some of the burden of life. It's the psychological precursor to that. And it's reasonable for smart young people to be concerned about broader philosophical issues if they tilt in that direction as well. But it's all too easy for that to be pathologized into resentment for those who seem to have more unfairly, and also to take the easy route out. And there aren't easy routes. There are only difficult routes to doing useful things, and it's better just to do that. And then, so I think that there's some impulse to, there's some wish that things could be less unfair and that fewer people could suffer. But it's kind of a low-level virtue, that reflexive compassion. I'm not saying it's without merit, because that compassion is the basis for the ability to take care of people who are ill and infants
what
and
makes
so
you
forth.
feel it's low level? Like, where is that?
It's not thought through. Things are complicated. It's hard to make complicated systems work better, and it's really easy to make them work worse.
What about activists that want to shut down certain speakers? Like someone who's, in my opinion, fairly innocuous in terms of here's one, Christina Hoff Sommers. I don't see a good argument for shutting her down. She's so polite. She's a feminist. She's well read.
Yeah,
she's a really nice person.
Janice Fimenko is like that too in Canada. Same sort of person.
Doesn't make sense that people would shout her down, yet they do.
Oh yeah,
they shout her down. They say horrible things about her. They mischaracterize her in a really brutal way that it completely invalidates their argument or their opposition to her, to anyone that's paying attention to what she said.
Oh well, a lot of it is also just immature acting out.
Yes,
and there's an arrogance
to
it.
Tolerated in some sort of a very strange way.
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, it's part of our doubt, I suppose, about authority and about our willingness to assume that all authority is contaminated by power.
It's sanctioned heckling too.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you're doing a play, or a musical, or you're singing a song, and someone just decides to start screaming out. Well, that person's an asshole. But if you're espousing an opinion, and that person decides to scream out, and they do so under the guise of moral virtue,
well, it's undeserved access to power.
Yes.
And it's no wonder that the radical leftists in particular concentrate on power. Everything's about power. Well, then it's okay if they use power as part of their means of expression. It's like, well, you're just playing power games. It's perfectly reasonable, even appropriate for me to play power games because, I'm oppressed compared to you. If everything's power, then everybody gets to yell.
Right.
And one of the things I realized about recently as well is that there isn't a debate about free speech exactly, not the way that we think about it, because there's the classical defense of free speech. So the classical defense of free speech is that it's better for both of us if we're able to exchange our opinions because I have the opportunity to learn from you and you have the opportunity to learn from me and you have the opportunity to learn from your own mistakes and social feedback, and so do I. And negotiation beats war. Okay, so that's kind of the classical. Now, but that's predicated on some assumptions, and those are you're an autonomous being, you're capable of formulating an opinion that's actually unique to you, and that in dialogue we can mutually modify each other's unique opinions in a way that produces a mutually harmonious and beneficial outcome. That's all the predicate. Well, the people who are opposed to free speech, you see, it's not that they're trying to shut down people whose opinions are different than theirs exactly. It's that they're opposed to the idea that free speech exists. It's a way deeper problem. Because at the bottom of the postmodernist mess is the following assumption, is that, well, there's no one way of interacting with the world that's preferable to any other way. And so what people do is organize themselves into hierarchies of power and then struggle for dominance within the hierarchies, and then the hierarchies struggle between each other. So it's a landscape of warring hierarchies. That's all it is. And you think that you're a person and that you have an opinion, but you're not. You're just the mouthpiece of your privileged hierarchy. And so am I. And it's incommensurate if we're from different hierarchies. There isn't a you talking to a me that could come to an agreement. There's just you acting as a mouthpiece for your power and me acting as a mouthpiece for my power. And so since I'm part of my group and I want to win because it's all about power, then why the hell would I ever want you to talk? It's not like I have anything to learn from you, or even that learning is possible, or even that there are two people having a discussion. There's nothing but the mouthpiece of power. There's two mouthpieces of power warring. And so why should I listen to you? I'll just shut you down because then I win. And so this free speech debate isn't about whose opinion should be allowed within an overarching framework where free speech is a real thing. It's a debate about whether there's such a thing as free speech at all. The radical postmodernist types, they deny even that there's such a thing as an autonomous individual in any way. You're just the nexus of economic forces, economic and social forces. You're entirely socially constructed. There's no you. These are deep criticisms. Like I've made this case before that the postmodern types, although they have to ally themselves with the Marxists for reasons that we don't have to go into, they are going after things that are so fundamental you can't believe it. There is no autonomous individual in the postmodern world. That's a modernist or an Enlightenment viewpoint. Or a Christian viewpoint or a Judeo-Christian viewpoint. Or maybe an Abrahamic religion viewpoint. Who the hell knows? It might be that deep. You're the nexus of sociological forces. There's no integrated self. You don't have ideas or opinions. And there's no dialogue between us. That doesn't exist. There's your group, your identity, your struggle for power, and that's all.
This is your interpretation of it? Or is this something they've espoused?
No. This is the fundamental essence of postmodernism. It's especially true in the format espoused by Derrida and Foucault. Foucault, everything's about power. Everything's about power. And Derrida was definitely, that's why he criticized the idea of logocentrism. Logos is that ability of the individual to engage in dialogue. The root for dialogue is logos or logic. That's all criticized. That's all gone. The identity politics players, the people who are serious about this philosophically, they don't believe in the idea of the autonomous individual. That's gone. So it's not like they're playing a game within, you think, well, this is a game. We're all playing a game where we agree on some things and we're just disagreeing about the details. It's like, oh, no. You don't want to make that mistake. This critique is way, way deeper than that, which is why Derrida was opposed to the idea of logocentrism. He didn't believe in the idea of an autonomous individual. That didn't exist. That's just a fiction set up by those who have used the idea of the autonomous individual to advance their power maneuvering within the confines of the colonialist West.